Welcome to the Unblock Your Business podcast. I'm Abby Rogers, success coach, business coach and hypnotherapist, and I help high achievers and business leaders master their subconscious habits for success, income goals and, above all, happiness. But success isn't just about mindset or strategy. It's about combining both and sealing the deal with a big dose of subconscious alignment, because our subconscious holds the true key to unlocking our potential. Let's dive in and look at how you can show up bigger, better, and more uniquely aligned in life and business today. Hello, welcome back to the Unblock Your Business podcast. Today I thought I would talk about pricing because it is such a massive stumbling block for so many business owners. And I know that this time of year is a time when we review everything, and I think pricing is the one thing where we kind of keep ourselves stuck more so. We'll change lots of other stuff, but we're still really afraid to push those pricing boundaries, and we get so in our heads about it. Now, I'm convinced that most of us give it way more thought and get way more hung up on pricing than our clients ever do. And maybe that's because a lot of us have been brought up to be very price conscious, to look after the pennies and to feel like investing in anything other than the absolute bare essentials is a bit of a luxury and something that we just don't do. So if you're in a business where you're providing a service that you see as a bit of a nice to have kind of service, then it can feel really scary charging money that feels like quite a significant amount. And the main message I wanted to share with you today is that pricing is literally just about frames of reference. That's all it is. Let's go into that a bit more deeply. So we are massively biased when it comes to pricing our own services. And that is something that we really can't help. We've grown up with a certain experience around money, a very specific reference point for what things should be worth and what people are willing to pay for them. I remember the very first time that I made what felt like a nice to have investment in my business, a bit of a luxury investment. I say nice to have because it wasn't what I then considered to be a basic necessity like advertising or spending on my website or room hire, those kinds of things. It was a membership that was more of a social thing, a networking thing. Still pretty essential to your business, right? But I didn't see it as an essential item. And that membership cost £25 a month. Now, to me, that 25 quid a month felt like an absolutely huge financial commitment back then. Absolutely huge. It was like double what I spent on my phone bill every month. very much of the sort of save and make do and mend kind of background. So I really procrastinated over that decision to join for ages before I finally took the plunge and started spending that whole £25 a month. And in my mind, I was doing all the sums, like how much is that over the year? And can I really afford that? Where else could that money go? And back then, charging by the session just also felt massive to me as well. So I started my practice charging something like £65 for an hour session. Like massive life-changing transformations I was making for my clients. But I felt like that was so much money, and I would almost break into a sweat when I had to break the news of the price to my clients. And most of them didn't even bat an eyelid. But for me, that felt like serious money. It felt really, really quite scary because that was all my frame of reference, and my perception of the value of my service told me this was all my stuff. This was all about my perception of that value. But what we forget is that there are billions of people in the world, and every single one of those people has a different experience, a different frame of reference around money and value. And part of it comes from the way we're raised, and part of it comes from our life experiences and just the way we think about things. So one thing I see all the time with therapists and coaches is that they are terrified of edging up in the smallest increments, and they're often firmly set in the frame of mind that you have to be cheap to compete and win clients. So they'll go for either looking at what everybody else is charging and try and charge the same. They'll go for the middle ground, or they'll try and be cheaper than most people out there. Now, it's just not true that you have to be cheap to compete and win clients, and that people perceive cheaper as a better investment. In fact, there is a real danger that if you are too cheap, people will be suspicious of your service because they actually expect to pay a decent rate for a qualified professional who's going to help them make massive changes in their lives. Now, there's this firmly ingrained mindset that everyone's hunting for the biggest bargain and we have to price ourselves to be the cheapest. This is inherent in a lot of our culture. And yes, we do bargain hunt. Definitely when we're doing things like the food shopping, going around a big supermarket shop. We are in our element, aren't we, with those 2 for the price of 1 offers. You're like, yay, I'll buy 4 of them. Excellent. Fill up the trolley. We seek out the best deals. Why? Basically because the supermarkets have trained us to do that in that environment, constantly undercutting each other and making their margins so tiny over the years so they compete with each other. And the money they make on each customer is absolutely tiny. It's like wafer thin margins. Their focus is on price because that is how they compete. They compete on price. That's their one thing that they can use to get more customers in and to see millions of customers flooding into their shops. That's how they win more of their market share and compete against the other big brands out there. And yes, that does appeal to us as customers and it gets them a lot of customers, but that is only one way to compete and to make your business desirable. Price is not always the thing that you have to compete on. Realistically, it is just not practical for small businesses to do that, to compete on price. As Robin Waite and I discussed a couple of weeks ago on the Christmas episode podcast, what happens is if you compete on price and you do end up swamped with clients at low prices, you will find you're working all the hours basically for very little reward and burning out and actually ending up hating your business because you're just so swamped seeing people that you're not really enjoying seeing, who are just people that are basically pursuing the lowest price. Price is just one way to differentiate your business and to stand out to people and make them want to invest in you. So another way to become really attractive to clients is to do an excellent job. If you give the most mind-blowingly amazing service that you possibly can, then people can't help but want to invest in working with you, whatever the cost may be. And that is where you need to focus if you want a business that doesn't drain the life out of you and where you feel like you're in control of the numbers. Now, I only work with 5 one-to-one clients maximum at any one time. Very often I'll keep it down to 2 or 3 because I know that I give those clients all my energy and attention and I give them such an incredible experience that it is worth a heck of a lot more than it used to be when I was doing stacks of £65 per hour one-to-one sessions. And there are plenty of people in the world who actively seek to invest in more expensive services because they like to invest in great quality. They like to know that they are getting the best of the best out there. So if you think alongside supermarkets, we happily have this coexisting opposite experience, which is things like your high street smart butcher or smart deli. They've got all the organic stuff, all the handmade stuff. Loaf of bread's 4, 5, 6 times the price you might pay in Tesco, but there's still a queue of people outside who can't wait to get their hands on some good quality produce because they love to invest in good quality. So you need to be more posh deli in your business, basically. I guess what I'm saying is that the opportunities are there. There is a market for every single price point. And why shouldn't you be marketing yourself as the quality option? Why shouldn't you be that better price point? All you have to do is to be bold enough to stick your mark in the sand and to say, look, I'm here and I have a service that is well worth investing in. And I know on paper that sounds like the easiest thing in the world to do, but I would like to bet that it sounds absolutely terrifying to plenty of people listening to this podcast right now. In practice, it is definitely not so easy. Why is that? Well, when we look at it through the lens of everything I've talked about here today, really there is nothing holding you back from significantly changing your pricing. All that pricing your services differently means for your business is that you're focusing on a different section of the market, a different ideal client. That is all it is. One who is ready and willing to pay what you're asking, whatever that might be. And believe me, there is an ideal client for every price point that you can imagine. I know coaches who charge £30 an hour for their services, and I know other coaches who charge 30k for just a few hours of their time. And I'd like to bet there's not much between them, really, when it comes down to it. So why is it so hard to feel like you could do that too, like you could be that 30k coach? And that's just because rather than valuing our services financially, where we fall down as human beings is that we start to bring our self-worth into the equation too. So we start to look at that higher price point and say, I wouldn't be good enough, or why would people pay me that much? There's something different about those people that can charge that much money, or what would everyone think of me? We get all those reasons not to going around in our minds. And we also bring in a big dose of fear too, because that new scary price point is way outside our perception of normal reality, of what's normal and reasonable. And that's just our perception. As I said earlier, we're just one person among billions, and we get all sorts of mental blocks springing up and all sorts of reasons why we couldn't possibly charge more. People like me don't charge prices like that. Surely there wouldn't be anyone out there who would want my services. Or my classic favourite one is, but I know that people in my audience or people in my location can't afford that much. Like, we're mind readers. That's my very favourite. That one comes up so often. Really, none of those things are true. They are all stories we're telling ourselves. They are just the way that we perceive ourselves and our services. And really, they're an excuse to stay where we are from our very clever subconscious brain, which doesn't want us to change. So my challenge for you today is to think about this. If you could charge absolutely anything for your service and you could see any number of clients, what would that look like? How would you change your business? Now, I'm not going to say that you have to go out there and start charging 10 times your price right now. But if you do, I want to know. So get on the email and tell me, because I would just love to know that this podcast has inspired you to take that leap. But if you do want to be able to charge more than you are at the moment, and you're feeling completely paralyzed with fear, and you've just done that exercise and decided what you would love to charge and how many clients you'd love to see, and you're getting all these what ifs about doing that, and I could never possibly do that even though it's my dream, then maybe we need to talk, because I would love to help you seriously up-level those prices and feel great about doing it. And you absolutely can do that through shifting those subconscious blocks, those old money beliefs, and changing your perception of yourself and your worth for the better. And it doesn't have to be a chore at all. It can be very simple and easy. Right now though, if you're just thinking of tweaking things a little bit, and you've got maybe some ideas in mind about changing your prices, but you're not quite sure where to get started, listen up, because I have a very simple formula for setting your perfect price for you right now that you can sit down and do this minute. So when I say perfect price right now, this is a price that maybe pushes your comfort zone a bit, but feels still manageable and doable, even without working on those subconscious money blocks. What we want to avoid for you right now is to keep undercharging so that you end up feeling burnt out and resentful. So if that's you right now, then you definitely need to do this. And we also want to avoid upping those prices so much that you freak yourself out and you can't actually sell your service, because it just triggers all sorts of doubts for you. So we don't want to go there. So I'd love you to just think of a price that you are feeling okay about charging. Maybe that's your current price, maybe a little bit higher, and maybe it's not a great price, it doesn't light you up with joy. It's okay, but really you'd love to charge a bit more deep down. Now here's the crunch bit. What I'd love you to do then is multiply that price by 10. Now Don't panic. That is not your final result. I'm not going to tell you to get out there and charge that, but just stick a 0 on the end and see how that makes you feel. And I pretty much guarantee that you will feel all sorts of panic. You'll get all sorts of voices coming up in your mind saying, oh, I could never go there. That's so scary. That's such a big number. I could never charge that. This is way out of your current comfort zone, and I've done that on purpose because it's really quite illuminating. But what you need to do now you have that bigger number, is to just dial things back, just work backwards from there, counting back down until you find a point where you feel okay. And I would hope that that would be a little bit above where you started out, maybe fairly significantly above where you started out before we did this exercise. That new number might feel a bit new and daunting, but if you could imagine trying quoting this price to your next client and just seeing what happens, then it's worth going for it. It might feel a bit out there, but not so much that you would panic and freeze and automatically give them a discount on the spot. So if you found that number that you think you could just try, give it a go. Get out there and try it. I would love to know what happens. So do share with me. I will put my email address in the show notes. Please write and let me know. Or you can join us on Facebook in my free group, which I'll also highlight in the show notes, called Solar Line Strategy. And of course, if you want to find out more about the one-to-one or mastermind programs, I will put those details in the show notes too. But please do let me know. I would just love to know how you got on today and whether this podcast episode has shifted some of those ideas around pricing that you may have been stuck with for a long, long time. That's all for this week. I hope you have a wonderful week and I will see you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, it would be incredible if you could pop a review on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or your favourite podcast platform. And if you want to dive deeper, you can find me in my Facebook group Unblock Your Business or at www.unblockyourbusiness.com.